Hi, my name is David Applebaum. I'm an architect from Los Angeles, California, and I've designed mansions all over the world. Building houses for rich and eccentric clients can be a challenge. But there's one place every architect knows that can sum up just how hard it is to make the super rich happy. This house, the mansion of powerful oil tycoon John D. Rockefeller, the richest man in America. It may look amazing, but building this place was a disaster of epic proportions. A fight that pitted father against son. 7 years of construction delays, scandals, kidnapping threats, arson, and even murder. Join us as we go inside with exclusive access to discover why things went so terribly wrong for America's richest man. The Rockefeller estate is huge. It covers more than 3,000 acres. That's nearly 4 times the size of Central Park. In the middle of this endless private garden, at the top of the hill, is the mansion that nearly tore the Rockefellers apart. A place they called Kijket. That's Dutch for lookout. And you can see how it got its name. It's got sweeping views across the Hudson River in almost every direction. On the ground, this is spectacular. Someone once said, "This is the house that God would have built, if only he had the money." The immaculate gardens are breathtaking. They're a grandiose fantasy resembling something from the Italian Renaissance, complete with fountains, running streams, sunken gardens, temples, and classical statues. Just walking up these steps to the forecourt gives you an idea of the quality and the magnitude of this place. As an architect, I'm already impressed with this build. It's on a truly monumental scale. But I want to see the house, so come on, let's get into the mansion. Kijket's now been home to 3 generations of Rockefellers. It's never been seen on TV, but we've been given exclusive access to film inside the house. I've wanted to see the inside of Kijket for so long. And now that I'm here, I have to say that I'm curious because there is no grand staircase, there is no grand foyer. It's a total contradiction. The outside just doesn't match the inside. The exterior of the house and the gardens are as fancy as can be. And then you step inside and it's like an unassuming upper middle class house. Why? The rest of the ground floor is also surprisingly modest. This is Rockefeller's private study. Just think, 100 years ago, the richest private individual in the world actually sat at this unimposing little desk. What keeps coming back to me is just how humble the inside of Rockefeller's house is, given Rockefeller's fortune. All the other tycoons at the time had huge palatial mansions. This just isn't the Gatsby-esque palace I was expecting. There's nothing super flashy here, nothing glitzy, no grand ballrooms or dining hall to entertain hundreds of guests, nothing to show off how wealthy he really was. A simple home wrapped in a fancy box. Why? Rockefeller Sr. and this weird house are a riddle. And to unravel it, we'll have to go back in time to before this house was built. Talk about the dichotomy of scene. Peter Johnson is the Rockefeller family historian, and he's known them for more than 30 years.
When he came to build Kikett, he was no longer a 30-year-old hotshot creating the oil industry. He's now close to 70 years old. He's retired from business for at least 10 years. He's looking for a quieter existence.
By 1911, Rockefeller was long since retired, and his son Junior was helping manage the family fortune.
He was worth approximately $1 billion in that year's money. So he was probably the wealthiest private citizen in the world.
It's here that the mystery I'm after really begins. The richest man in America retires and leaves the city for a bit of quiet life to this giant 3,000-acre plot of land he's bought up over the years.
So here at Kikett, there was originally just an old farmhouse. He lived very quietly and very happily with his wife in the farmhouse.
It's just odd. The richest man in America suddenly decides to live in the middle of nowhere in an old farmhouse. Not the lifestyle you'd expect for a New York tycoon like Rockefeller. David Patrick Columbia knows the New York society scene and its history inside and out.
The Vanderbilts and the Whitneys and the Harknesses, et cetera, were considered society in New York, but the Rockefellers never even put themselves in a position of being considered society. So everybody knew about him, of course, because he was the richest man in the world, but he had no interest in making the world see how rich he was.
But why? In fact, it seems that maybe Rockefeller Sr. didn't really care about any kinds of material possessions at all. But one night, the old farmhouse he was living in caught fire.
It burned down one night, and he simply moved down the hill to another farmhouse.
The destruction of Senior's house was his son's chance to build a better place for his parents to live. Rockefeller Jr. had worked for his father since graduating from college. He was now in his early 30s and a director of Standard Oil. Junior was used to wealth, and he thought that his parents should live in a house more suited to their position.
At that point in time, his son said, "We need to build a place for you that is consonant with your wealth and prestige and status in American society." John D. Rockefeller Jr. and his father had very different views. How should we live? All of those kinds of things.
Rockefeller Jr. had strong opinions and a taste for luxury that set him at odds with his father. In fact, his father wasn't much interested in even building a new house.
Gradually, John D. Rockefeller Jr. convinced his father they were trying to build something with great taste that was comfortable for John D. Rockefeller and his wife to live in.
But that was only the beginning of the battle between the two powerful men. I know there's more to this story about Junior and Senior, and the story of how this house came to be.